Do you really believe that Jesus has authority? Matthew 8 shows us Jesus not just talking about faith, but how to respond to it. He heals, commands, restores, and delivers, and through it all, his authority is shown. But this chapter also asks us a very hard question. Do we trust Jesus enough to follow him even when it costs us something? We are going to dive into Matthew 8 together and discuss Jesus' authority and how we should respond to it. If you're new here, hi, my name is Olivia Dees, and this is Grace and Grounds, where I am trying to build a community of young women who want to honor Christ more every day. I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be, and I just want to be there for women who are also just trying to get better and grow their faith. So if that sounds like a community you would like to be a part of, please like this video, subscribe, comment something, and just let me know how I can be praying for you. And let's get into the video. We are going to start by just reading through Matthew 8. If you would like to read it on your own, then I will put time codes in the description and you can skip forward to just get to the actual points. So go grab your coffee or your tea and sit with me as we read through this chapter. Today I have made a cappuccino. It has a little honey in it and it's honestly pretty good. So let's get into it and read Matthew 8. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priests, and offer the gift that Moses commanded, for a proof to them. When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes. And to my servant, Do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And to the centurion Jesus said, Go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. And when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and began to serve him. That evening they brought to him many who were oppressed by demons, and he cast out the spirits with a word and healed all who were sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. He took our illnesses and bore our diseases. Now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. And a scribe came up and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Another of the disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, Follow me, and leave the dead to bury their own dead. And when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, Save us, Lord, we are perishing. And he said to them, Why are you afraid, O you of little faith? Then he rose and rebuked the wind and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, What sort of man is this, that even the winds and seas obey him? And when he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men met him, coming out of the tombs, so fierce that no one could pass that way. And behold, they cried out, What have you to do with us, O Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Now a herd of pigs was feeding at some distance from them. And the demons begged him, saying, If you cast us out, send us away into the herd of pigs. And he said to them, Go. So they came out and went into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the waters. The herdsmen fled, and going into the city, they told everything especially what had happened to the demon-possessed men. And behold, all the city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. In this chapter, we see many instances of how Jesus uses his authority, and I want to go through them one by one, starting with the leper. In this section, I want to just point out that the leper does not question Jesus' ability. He comes up to him and he says, "Lord, you can do this if you will." He doesn't question if Jesus can. He says, "You can." So when we come to Jesus in prayer, we should know that his will is to be done, but we should know that he is completely capable of doing anything in our lives that we ask. That doesn't mean he will, but it means he can, and that should drive our prayer. Throughout this whole part, Jesus shows that he is willing to come near to our brokenness. This leper would have been cast out by anyone else in that region, but Jesus came near him and touched him, which is unheard of. People with leprous diseases in this age were basically just not a part of society. No one would get near them, no one would ever think to touch them, but Jesus did, and he healed him. And Jesus can do the same for you if you trust him. And even if that doesn't look how you want it to, Jesus' will is perfect in your life. And that doesn't mean it's easy, but God does everything for your good and his glory, even if it doesn't feel like it. So as we leave this portion, I just want you to also notice this man's humility and dependence on Christ. That was his posture. We are not to ever expect anything from Jesus. We are to just trust that he will do what is best and that he can do anything we ask. So do you actually believe that Jesus is willing to meet you in your brokenness and that he's able to work all things together for your good and his glory? Next, we move into the centurion's faith. In this portion, we see that great faith recognizes Jesus' authority. This centurion knew Jesus could come to his house, but he knew even more Jesus did not have to even step foot near his house. All he had to do was say a word and his servant would be healed. So in this portion, we see that faith isn't just believing that Jesus will do exactly what we want, but it's believing that Jesus has authority even when we have no idea what he's doing. This centurion trusted Jesus' word. So do you trust Jesus because he's proven himself trustworthy, or do you only trust him when he gives you what you want? Next, we move into Jesus healing many. Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law. He heals many who are sick and oppressed. And then Matthew even connects this to Isaiah's prophecy, which, if you remember, several chapters ago, we were talking about how there are just so many prophecies throughout Matthew to show that even the smallest things prophesied have come about. And that means we can just trust even more the prophecies that are still yet to come. But in this portion, we see him healing, we see him doing all of these miracles, but we need to remember that Jesus isn't merely just a teacher who is healing. He is the promised Messiah who came to bear our burdens. And these miracles were not just displays of his power so he could just show how cool he was, but these miracles revealed who he is, that he cares for us, that he loves us enough to bear our burdens, to bear our sin, to go so far as to bear our sin on the cross and to rise 3 days later just so that we could rip that veil between us and God and we can have communion with him. Then we get into the cost of following Jesus. Following Jesus is way more costly than simply just admiring him and who he is or was. In this section, we see two people express interest in following him. The first says, "I will follow wherever you go." And the second says, "Let me bury my father first." Jesus responds by saying that following him does not mean comfort and security. He also responds to the man who says he needs to bury his father and says you need to let the dead bury their own dead. Jesus takes priority. And that's not to say that Jesus doesn't care, but he wants your all. And if there's something that you are wanting to follow first, that is putting off following Christ, you need to let that go and you need to hold on to Christ. Christianity is not simply adding Jesus to an already comfortable life. It's not just the aesthetic coffee in the morning with a Bible. I know maybe that's what it can seem like I'm doing, but I do want to speak the word to you. And there is a difference. It's not a sin to have coffee and word, but that is not all Christianity is. And sometimes it seems like people live a very easy Christian life because all they want is the aesthetic. So don't be that person. Christ is hard work, and loving him and dying to your sin every day is hard. And so you should never feel like your life is just easy. And sometimes there are seasons where God is just blessing you, and that's great. But that doesn't mean you're not dying to yourself every day and you use that as an excuse to just coast by and not fight your sin. So are you following Jesus, or are you just asking him to fit into the life that you already chose? Next, we see Jesus calms the storm. The main point here is that Jesus has authority even when our circumstances are terrifying. Throughout this whole part, the disciples are terrified and Jesus is just sleeping. So finally they go wake him, and all he does is say, "Be still." And it's still. And the disciples are just in awe. They're thinking, and they say, "Who is this that even the wind and seas obey him?" That is the Lord that we serve. So sometimes Jesus does calm the storm, and sometimes he allows you to experience the storm. But either way, the storm does not have the final authority. Jesus does. Next, we see that Jesus has authority over demons. In this passage, we see that even the spiritual realms recognize Jesus' authority. This is such an interesting passage to me because Jesus encounters these demons. The demons immediately know who Jesus is, and they also do not even try to fight the fact that they are about to be cast out of these people. They know they have no authority over Jesus. So instead they have a compromise and they say, "Just throw us to the pigs." Like, they know that they are dust beneath Jesus's feet. So Jesus casts them out, they go into the pigs, and all the pigs go into the water and drown, and the people are terrified and they want Jesus to leave. Jesus just rid these men of demons, but because the people lost their herd, they want Jesus to leave because he is inconveniencing their life and their way of living. So the demons recognize Jesus' authority, but the people reject his presence because it disrupts their lives. So do you want Jesus as Savior only, or are you willing to submit to him as Lord? So Matthew 8 might just look like a bunch of different miracles that Jesus performed, but ultimately, this all points to Jesus' authority. Let's go through them. We see that Jesus has authority over disease in the leper. Jesus has authority over distance when we see the centurion's servant. Jesus has authority over sickness when we see Peter's mother-in-law. He has authority over nature and the storm. He has authority over demons and the possessed men. And ultimately, he has authority in every single area of our lives. But Matthew isn't merely saying, "Look how powerful Jesus is." He's saying, if Jesus really has this authority, what should our response be? And the answer that we see throughout this chapter is faith, surrender, humility, and obedience. So do you trust Jesus' authority? Are you willing to follow him even when it's uncomfortable? And have you surrendered every area of your life to him? Matthew 8 doesn't just ask if we believe Jesus can calm the storm. It's asking if we trust him enough to follow him into the storm. Jesus doesn't promise a storm-free life. He reveals that he is Lord over the storm. If this video encouraged you, I would love for you to join our community, and please like this video because it helps me to just push this video to women who could really use some more encouragement in their lives. Comment down below any questions that you have or concerns or ways that I could improve this channel, and I will see you in the next video.